Welcome back to Good Day State Line. We've been missing Tim Mahoney. We haven't seen you in a while.
I know. I feel terrible that I haven't been here. It's so great to see you, and I got to meet your mother, who's wonderful and adorable.
So we're excited to have you back. We're going to talk about athletes today and how much money they actually make.
Right. So Rockford has 3 very significant professional athletes that are going right now, and you know, they're not just that they actually made the teams. These are like potential all-stars, you know, team MVPs, that kind of thing. And so there's a lot of conversation about athletes getting these big contracts.
Sure.
And I thought it'd be interesting to see what is it that they actually bring home when they sign these big contracts. You know, Aaron Judge is probably going to sign for around $500 million now that he's an unrestricted free agent, which, you know, you can't live on that, but it's a good start. So thanks for seeing that that's a joke. So
I can live on it.
So let's see if, you know, let's say you sign a contract for $10 million. Okay. So a couple of things that I don't think people readily know. Number one, their management teams take a percentage of that right off the top. So the agent typically takes 4% up to 10 or 20%. Usually it's around 4%. That comes right off the top. Then they have an economic management team. So they have their accountants, their lawyers.
Okay.
That's another 1% minimum, which could also go up to like 10%. So we're already eating away at that money. And remember, like, you know, 2 of the players are in the NFL. And the NFL, if you're a player, stands for not for long, because you're not going to be there very long. And so this is a lot of times the money that these kids are going to make for the rest of their life. I mean, Shaquille O'Neal tells a story about the first contract that he signed when he turned 18 was with Nike, and they handed him $1 million. And so he went out and he had no idea how money worked or how all this worked, and he went and spent $1 million. He bought a house for himself, a house for his mom, a couple of cars. And his manager called him up and said, "You now owe $500,000. And he's like, "What are you talking about?" Because he had no idea. So they get those percentages off the top. They're employees, okay? So like if you own your own company, if you're a hedge fund manager or whatever, you only have to pay capital gains tax, which is typically around 15%. They pay tax like it's regular income. So if you are in California, Illinois, New York, Oregon is actually the worst. Every dollar above $450,000, you're going to pay over 60% in taxes.
That's a lot.
That is a lot when you're talking about those amounts of money. And you get it in one shot. That amount of money is going to go to way taxes. You have to file a tax return in every state where you play.
No way.
And you have to file a tax return in every country where you play. So if you're in baseball or hockey, you go play in Canada, you got to file a tax return in Canada. That's true with other employees. It's just typically you don't, you know.
You do that so often.
Well, you don't make enough to get to the threshold where you need to file the tax return. You have to make a certain amount to get to that threshold. But if you're a professional athlete, you get to that threshold. So if you're a baseball player, you got to file a tax return and you got to keep track. How long did I play? Did I get any bonuses? Well, because their contracts have all these bonuses that they can get if you become MVP, if you end up an all-star, if you get different awards, you get so they got to keep track of that. They got to keep track of all of their expenses. It's very complicated, and so they have to have a team that's doing all that. Now, if you sign a contract, you know, for $50 million, you can afford that team. But let's say you're somebody that's making $450,000.
Sure. Right at that cusp.
Right at that cusp, and then you got to have a team that does all this, and they all take the percentages, and then you see these players that are buying the rings and the cars and the, you know, Richard Mille watches and whatever, and here you are going, okay, well, after all this is said and done, you know, I've got a couple $100,000 and it's supposed to last me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, because you're going to tear your ACL next week.
Exactly. Well, that's the other thing is, you know, if you're in the NFL, if you don't pay, you don't get played.
Yeah.
If you're in the NBA, they typically have to pay you your entire contract. In baseball, it can go either way. Sometimes some of it's guaranteed, some of it's not. In the NFL, almost all the time, none of it is guaranteed. Unless you're Aaron Rodgers, you're going to get some guarantee. But if you're a basic player, it's not guaranteed. And if you get hurt, you're all done. So even though they sign for these large dollars, it gets taken away dramatically and reduced dramatically, and a lot of times they end up with a lot less than you would think.
It's very interesting, kind of like winning the lottery.
Right, exactly. Very much so. And a lot of them end up filing bankruptcy like a lot of lottery winners do.
Just like playing Monopoly. You're going to be back next week.
Great.
Yes, we'll have some more fun then. Coming up next, we're helping you find the perfect real Christmas tree for your family. Then we're making hand pies on Air Friday. We'll be right back.